Hello everyone, welcome to the Larp Tales podcast, the award-winning podcast where we share our stories through the realms of live-action roleplay. My name is Oliver, I'm one half of your hosting duo. With me, as always today, is my co-host Robyn, but also joining us on this show is our guest Kitty Dobson. Kitty is a LARPer and she's also the game runner for EYELarp and Feast Your Eyes. Kitty and Johnny run games out their award-winning LARP site at Eversley here in the UK. EYELarp and Feast Your Eyes brings players immersive and cinematic LARPs, encompassing everything from being a Roman legionnaire, a colonial, futuristic marine, a gunslinging Wild West cowboy, or a sworn member of the Night's Watch. Kitty is also involved in the production of the new Fest LARP coming to the UK, Menhirs Fate, and we'll be discussing what we can expect from that game coming this year. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, please. It does help if you're new to the channel. Consider subscribing. If you want to follow us on all the socials, the links are down in the description. Give us a follow on Blue Sky if you could. We'd really appreciate it. If you're listening on an audio platform, give us 5 stars. That helps people find us as well. There is a Patreon as well if you want to go check that out and help support us. And with that all out the way, let's get into our conversation with Kitty. Hello everyone, welcome to the Larp Tales podcast. My name's Oliver, I'm your host. I'm here with Robyn as always, and also joining us today is Kitty. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on, Kitty.
Thanks for inviting me. This is lovely.
I feel like this one's like way overdue, and I've got a lot that I want to ask. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to fit it into like an hour. I think we'll maybe start like giving us a brief overview of maybe what you and Johnny do, what you do at like Eversley, maybe.
Sure. So my name's Kitty Dobson, with Johnny Fisher, my partner. I am part of the duo who do a lot of the LARPs that happen at Eversley in Hampshire. So either under the umbrella of EYELarp or Feast Your Eyes, which is the company that me and Johnny run ourselves there. It's a bit more sort of creative, weird projects that aren't necessarily going to work, but crazy ideas that we come up with that are a bit less stable and sound than the sort of ongoing EYELarp projects that have been going on for a long time. And I'm now part of the director team at Menhirs Fate, which is a new Fest LARP that's being set up.
We definitely want to like touch upon Menhirs Fate. So like, but I do want to know like how did you get into doing what you're doing at Eversley? Did you were you long-time LARPers? Did you start LARPing together, or did you meet through LARP? Or?
No, so me and Johnny actually met at an EYELarp game called Buccaneers the Damned. That was the first time I was at Eversley, and he'd been LARPing since he was 16, so he was well-seasoned warrior, as they say at that point. But he like we didn't properly then meet until the following Bucks when we were both crewing, because we both played the first one. Then we sort of both fell into the same group of regular crew who were going to those events a lot. At the time, I think I'd only been to Empire a couple of times before that, so it was very much my first like foray into smaller LARP. And it's kind of like all of the games that happen there have a broad ethos of low rules, high immersion. So a lot of the people who have either crewed or like been part of like the SFX team and stuff like that are like ex-film or current film workers who get to sort of just play around with some of the stuff that we want to do at work. And at that point I was working in film and costume, so it just meant that I could, after a week of frustration at like, I don't know, having to organize when Chris Hemsworth's pants were going to arrive, I could go and be a Viking for a weekend and get that aggression out by system.
That makes sense. So you were working in that industry before you started doing LARP full time then. So when did you pivot like to full time?
I had when was it? 2018 is when we started Feast Your Eyes, which was originally just supposed to be catering. We were going to be alongside the main EYELarp team, which is Josh Smith, who still does a lot of the film sim stuff that's there. They're like airsoft light LARP, like a sprinkling of LARP, but mostly airsoft in those games where they, there'll be an in-character sort of mess hall or something in the evening, but other than that it's mostly kind of airsofty, kind of more chill. And so he was originally running EYELarp as well, and that was his baby. And then he had his 5th child and 2nd vasectomy, and he ended up taking a bit of a step back over the course of 2019, and Johnny and I were just in a position where we could cover the occasional game, and then by the end of 2019 we were running everything, it was really exciting. Johnny and I had taken a year out of the previous work we were doing, because of sort of personal like Johnny got ill around that time, and so he'd previously been a window fitter and then fell off a ladder and then couldn't lift things without being sick, which turned out to be a whole range of issues. And so he was like, well, I need to find another job, because people aren't enjoying me vomiting on their windows as soon as I pick them up and put them into position. So
better than before you put it into position, I guess.
I mean, it's worse,
as a reason for having to find a different job. It just worked out timings wise for us to sort of figure out something else. We ended up working at Norton Armories for a little while as well, making shields and armor for some TV and film things, and it just all sort of fell into place with Josh taking a step back. And by the end of that year we were still doing some catering, but it was sort of a immediate sideline when it had been the intended entire business. And since then it's just been relentless. It's been 30 events a year or something.
I guess so. Then you kind of had a business model sort of there, because because there's not a lot of people that I know of anyway making like LARP their career running games. It's usually the big fest LARPs, and then you've just got like passion projects. But I guess you guys kind of saw that was kind of working, and then you just kind of added to it, I guess.
It's a very weird niche, and I think the only reason that we're able to do it is because we run so much at Eversley, because most people are having to rent out other venues or find church halls that are friendly to it, and scout camps, and those are becoming less and less friendly to LARP over the last 5 years. And so it's only by the benefit that we have this incredible resource of the site that Josh has cultivated that we've been able to make it our full-time job. But because of that, we've really tried to make the place work for us as much as possible, because it's been very much sort of quantity as well as quality as much as possible.
Like the quality really shines through though, because I mean, and it makes a lot of sense when you're talking about like what your background is and everything, because when we go there, the volume of props and costume and the quality of them and everything that comes through, do you guys end up making a lot of that sort of thing yourself? How does that all work?
It's a mixture. It's hot. A lot of the stuff that's currently in the kit store is stuff I've made, but it's sort of built on a backbone of strange film acquisitions when production shut down, and they've some of the best stuff we've got has been like absolute accidents. We've got a pile of incredible silicon corpses that are disgusting, like they are vile, and the reason we've got those is because a company that, like a costume house that bought all the costumes from a Netflix production that shut down, had bought everything without seeing what was in the crates, and they had one box that was like a scroll. They couldn't figure out what it said, but they were like, oh, I think it's maybe jewelry or props or something like that. They cracked it open, and it's just this pile of horrible festering corpses that are, they look disgusting, and so they freaked out and threw them all in the biffa bin. And then when I was there that day with Esme, I don't know if how much you've interacted with, I suppose she was Cersei Lannister at Dragon's
quite a bit.
Of course. I always forget what spheres. I assume everyone knows everyone else, and then it turns out they haven't never met, and it's bizarre.
We do well. I think we get to know pretty much everyone, don't we? But she was late to meet me, and so I'd already gone into the costume house to pick up some, I think, trousers and some tunics and things like that they were selling quite cheap. And I just look out the window, and her legs are poking out of the biffa bin, and she's just like waving arms, going like, look what I found, this is amazing.
I can picture that so clearly in my mind.
so excited. But then obviously we had to cover them with blankets because I was terrified of driving back through central London with this pile of corpses in case I got pulled over for grave robbing or something, because they look so accurate. Like they're so good that we had to dress one of them because it looked obscene that they were naked.
Oh really?
The head flopped forward like this, and the person who was helping me put like an arm through a sleeve just had to leave the room. She was like,
what a jackpot though for a LARP though. That's an absolute jackpot, because they wouldn't be that really. They would be very expensive to commission, like to get done.
Yeah, but things end up in a skip at the end of the production because nobody knows what to do with it. And luckily we've got enough mates in, places around the place who go, I've just seen this weird thing in a skip, do you want it? And it's sort of where film industry props and costumes go to die, basically, obviously.
Because it's not ideal getting them from like auctions and that, because sometimes you see really cool things at auctions, but they're literally aiming at like collectors. They're not trying to go, oh yeah, here use this for a LARP or something like that. It's like you see these lots and it's like, oh, this is from House of the Dragon. I'm just like, yeah, but they're selling it for like $2,000.
Like the only good thing about those is you get beautiful reference pictures. So if you're trying to figure out how a particular dress went together, you can go, oh, that's weird, the back of that's strange. But
I remember that, like when they do the displays at like Comic-Con and things like that, when they have like all these beautiful things set up, I'm just like there with the phone, just like trying to zoom in on every little attachment. Like, oh, okay, that explains how they were able to move their arm in that.
Yeah. Like my favorite is when there's like, it's in a glass box, beautifully arranged, and then surrounding them is cosplayers in some similar outfit to that, or going like with phones or like zooming in, trying to really,
we've been there. We used to before LARP, we used to like compete in cosplay and things like that. So a lot of the the competition like specifications was like accuracy, so like we used to be like just studying like we're like, has anyone got the shot of the back of this costume from this trailer? That's a good point, actually, coming from like costume. One big difference is that when you're on a set, or even if you're in cosplay, it doesn't need to be practical, because you can get the shots you need. Like, is that a big difference between like something that you might make for LARP and something you might make for a set?
I think the difference is probably the things that we need for LARP end up being on the stunt people, and like it's that. Like when we find a bit of costume and figure out, oh, this is from this thing, like, I love doing that. That's one of my favorite things to figure out from mystery boxes of costume that come from these things. It's always the stunt men's or stunt teams like clothes that are the ones that are made for practicality. So we've got a few red coats that I'm pretty sure are on something like the Patriot, something like that. Like maybe 80s 90s Revolutionary War kind of things, and you could see where they've attached the squibs all down the back where it's exploded, and they never fixed it, and that's fine for us because we're just going to put it on the guy who's going to get exploded in this scene anyway. So like put it on the keenest crew member who's going to go, oh!
That's amazing. So by the way, I've made the connection. So like you're saying you did catering, is that where the term feast your eyes came from?
Yeah, I know, it's super fun.
I've only just got that. I was like, all right, yeah. Because we've been to like this year. So last year, was our first time coming to like your games at Eversley, but we technically
No Watch Begins was the first time for you guys, right?
That's
and
right.
We kind of got addicted.
Kind of got addicted. But we've only technically done Feast Your Eyes ones. 1, 2, 3. I think four Feast Your Eyes games we did. So what's the difference between the EYELarp stuff currently and the Feast Your Eyes stuff?
So generally, EYELarp ones are long-running stories. We've done the occasional one-shot, but it tends to be a one-shot that is an offshoot of the overarching storyline for, our cowboy game was Flying Meds, Smoking Brass. And once a year we did a nightmare game for that, which was a kind of horror take on that same genre, where you could bring your character from the mainline one into that. Next weekend we've got Five Kingdoms, which is our kind of high fantasy kind of D&D flavor LARP. That's the last of this run because it's kind of been rebooted a few times over the course of its lifetime. That one's been going on for a really long time. That was when I originally played. back in, I don't know, 2018, 2017, something like that.
Yeah.
And now it's got a completely different personality from what it originally had. Like, it was very, I'd say the first 2 or 3 episodes were very Lord of the Rings, and now it's got very Hobbit. Like, it's like there's a lot of wizards who cast a lot of spells that are certainly interesting.
Yeah.
Certainly creative. But because both have the same kind of low rules mentality, I think like some of the Feast Your Eyes ones have more in-depth concept rules, because it'll be very much based on a particular TV genre or book series, or things like that. Whereas it's always been a bit more loosey-goosey at EYELarp with the kind of, it's like broad genres for a lot of them, rather than the specific like concept. We'll pull in like little bits from different movie inspirations over the course of a run. So like Flying Lead had a big chunk of it that was very kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, kind of old school like Western. And then some of it was more kind of more modern, like gritty Western at times. There was like a whole sort of anti-capitalist like arc, and a whole like sort of religious cult arc and things like that. And so like we try to do that in like 3 event arcs, so that each one will be about 18 months of in-game time, and the time between it long. So if somebody joined in halfway through, they didn't feel like there was years of backstory that they needed to know, because it was always sort of, this is the plot for this event, and it feeds into that, and it's setting the stage for the next thing, but it's very much part of a journey rather than the entirety of it, or a very small spot on the sort of timeline.
I gotta admit, like, we didn't, it wasn't as if we didn't want to jump in because we feel lost. I mean, there's only so many LARPs you can do in a year. And I know there's some people that come to Eversley that are there every weekend, and they're crazy, but they're brilliant. But
some of those people as well come down from Scotland. And
they do. Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. I do know how they do it. They get a bus, but they start on Thursday and they leave. They go back on like it's a week long. Some of them I see them the following weekend, and I like ask how much time they actually had home between it, and it'll be less time than I've had at home.
Exactly. It's like I was speaking to like Elle, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing 17 this year." Like, what 1 year we were chatting to her, she's like, "Yeah, I've got 17 of them." We're like, "How?" Like, how do you have the energy? Like, it takes me a month to get over a LARP. I mean.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So it's not that we didn't want to jump in, but a lot of these games that you're running sound amazing, but they're so popular. Trying to get onto them, and you have this returning player base, like you say, that just want to come back like over and over again, which I guess is good for you as game runners, right?
Yeah, it's been great, but it's been I think it's been a victim of its own success in that way, because we at times simply haven't been able to cater to the amount of people who want to come to things, and it's been really difficult navigating that disappointment from ourselves as much as anybody else, because we don't want people to miss out. And so the additional admin of like waiting lists and that kind of stuff has been a lot for just the 2 of us to be able to keep on top of. And it's just, I think that impetus has driven us to do like more and more and more events, so that broadly more people can come to events. But it is definitely like, by the end of last year, we were very much running on fumes in terms of like creative output as much as anything else. There's only so many times you can be like, right, well, a villager has to go in and get them to go and do something. So villager Ted has lost his sheep, and we can't do sheep because we can't have somebody dressed as a sheep. Like they'll look for the sheep, and then they'll go like it's that sort of like it gets to the point where all the sort of inspiration for certain settings and for like the levels of plot that we were able to do, we're kind of running out of steam, and we really needed to have a bit of a break to like build up that pool of inspiration and energy again. But that's part of the reason that we've worked so well with some of the co-writers who come in and run things like Full on Hope with Harry Knight, and Dragon's Hunt with Ren, and some of the others who've come in over the last couple of years. Nick Young, who we're working on with Menhirs, runs Portents, and because we can basically just leave them the reins and go like, right, here's our setup, here's a bunch of our crew, and a bunch of the people you've brought with you. take it and go with it, because it really helps. And it's really great collaborating in that way as well, because it just sort of fires different neurons. Because God, me and Johnny spend so much time together, we've got nothing,
it's difficult. But you've got also, like, you know, like the LARP community is full of creatives as well. Like we're all that way. I've got me, even we've been doing it, haven't we, Rob? And we're just like, we're not like we want to run a LARP, but we're just like, oh,
we do have an idea though for a LARP. We have actually thought it all out.
I was just like, so you could do this. And we have
figured out how it would work at Eversley. Like,
every single time I go to the pub with somebody, there comes a point in the night where it's usually leaning over the bar. Like, it won't be sitting in the seats that we've been in, and it won't be like, you know, over dinner or anything. It will be in that kind of liminal space of like, hey, anyway, so I've thought of a lot, and I will get pitched something every time. And some of them are incredible, and some of them are crazy but could be incredible, and some of them are the game of tennis. No, I can't. I did have tennis pitched, and this is like a long running, like, silly joke that I love the person who pitched this dearly,
right?
And it could work, don't get me wrong, but it was tennis.
It's just tennis. Okay. I mean people,
there's a lot of animes that are built on, right, like playing a game, right? Like this
is it. I've got to admit, when I first heard, as like, you know, an anime fan, when I first heard of all these new genres of anime coming out, where it's like, this one's about golf, and I'm like, what? What's an anime about golf? Okay, and they're usually really popular. They're really good. So yeah, I could see it. I think for us, like Robyn, you were like, oh, I think it usually starts with a genre. I'm assuming, because you were just like, and we'll talk about Game of Thrones in a minute, but like, I think usually you're like, I want to be in this world, you know, because I think it's a lot of it. A LARP is like escapism, right? So, and then a bit like D&D and things like that, you always end up just running the game that you wanted to play in anyway. You're just like, I would like this, and I think that's usually how it starts. Because Robyn, the other day, this isn't the one we've talked about at length, but Robyn's like, I want to do a Jurassic Park one. I'm like,
oh no, that's the one I want to do. I have thought this through, okay? And I used to work at a science center, and I know like a whole company that does the realistic velociraptors and everything, and I know how to get them. I know they'd be on board with it, and I've really thought through how you would do a Jurassic Park LARP.
I would go to that immediately. I was a dinosaur kid as a kid, 100%.
I mean, it would be the
ultimate. I know we could make a gate. I know we could do that prop. We could do that.
Would you just have somebody behind the gate singing the theme tune as they open it?
It would just be just full of puns and just full of just references to the film. I'm just like, but how would you get the Diplodocus moment? I would just like,
would it just be 1 foot?
Well, I'm thinking what it would be is you'd have to have them looking out the right way in the tree, so you would just have the neck coming up.
Okay. It's just a head prop. Yeah. Did you ever see the video or like any pictures of the Drake that they had at Empire in, like, I want to say like 2017? Like
is it the red one?
It was I think it was green. It was just a head in a tent that came out on a track.
Oh no.
And
no.
And then it ate 3 egregores or something.
No, I never saw that one.
It was one of those like notorious battles of that era of Empire.
And
it was just like brutal. Nobody knew what to do about it. But it was very much that, just like, it's just a head in a tent, but that's very effective sometimes if you've got the right setting for it, and you've got a lot of people in the way to like hide the fact that there's not the whole body there.
But I mean, to be fair, people when you up the game, like when you're giving like people a really good experience in like your games, and even Empire, like the players like really put their effort in. Like people expect that you've like set a new standard. You know what I mean? So what was cool and acceptable is people go, oh, that's naff now. Like, so I think, so I don't know whether you must have to, like, at your games be like, there's a baseline of like quality, right? Surely.
Yeah, it does feel like that. Like, it's the sort of jumping the shark, isn't it? Like, after a certain point, especially with, I think that's part of the reason that we do like to end campaigns and games after 7 to 9 events, is because after a certain point everyone's so powerful that realistically there's a lot they can do. They've got so much money from the economic side of things that they can simply buy everywhere in town, or and it does get to the point where you go like, okay, they've seen us do a really cool like hanging of a prisoner that was like a terrifying moment when we first did it, and now we've got writers going like, do you reckon we could just throw a hanging in tomorrow? This was supposed to be like the real height of what we could do with our SFX team, who are mostly film alumnus. Some of them are sort of second generation film people who've been doing it since some of the incredible films of yesteryear. And like our main guy H, he was the guy who set off the spaghetti bolognese in Hot Fuzz when it explodes in Summerfield.
I heard that last time we were at Eversley. That's really, but that's just it. Like it's that it's those bits that give you like that, especially that film sim experience. Because I gotta admit, I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of people feel like this, but I feel like I really do love Empire, but like coming to those Feast Your Eyes games gives me what Empire doesn't give me in LARP, because Empire is very much a go do your own thing and go interact with all the other players, whereas like Eversley is like the games that you guys are running there. It's just like, oh, I'm the main character in a TV show or a movie, and I get a beginning, middle, and an ending to my weekend.
That's the intention. I guess it's not so much easier to do that on a smaller scale. When you have a limited number of people there, and this is the story, people can go with it. Like at Fest, it's so much easier to have tons of, like, it's a smorgasbord of plot, isn't it? Like this, I'm sure we were in completely different sides of that game, even though we're both playing sort of martial characters. I think we are still playing martial characters. It's very different sort of there's so many different avenues you can take that are very different, especially in Dawn and the Marches as like two sort of cousin nations.
We're all pally at the minute. I don't know. I feel like we need to feel like something needs to be shaken up a little bit.
You've been saying this for about a year now. Okay, I think you're just gonna have to do it.
But I know they're all cultists. I just can't find out in character.
The trouble is, we just fight so well together when we're on the battlefield. It's like a horrible sibling relationship, and I love that. Every time I look across and like Dame Aurum is there with like a two-handed spear, just like. It's like, oh, I can't hate you as a nation. Look at you.
That's running through that field of fighting.
Just looking so swish in military council, all of you. Like, oh, like we can respect those weird guys over there, way more so than like some of the other nations, because like there's some very strange culture clashes on that field. But like Dawn,
Dawn,
you know what? The marches and Dawn, I love coming to the marches because it's better. And I like my previous character, I was like, she kind of fit in quite well with the marchers. She was kind of a little bit more like rough and stuff, and she'd like muck around and things, whereas Nymeria is so like dead serious and everything. And I was like, how am I going to act in the marches? I was really stressed about this because I was like, how do I act in the marchers? It's worked out perfectly. I've just not changed her in the slightest, and it just still works really well.
Are you playing like a Draugr then?
No, she's a changeling, but she's very gothy, very like
angry changeling.
Okay,
angry changeling all the freaking time. And the only time she kind of gets all excitable and smiles is on the battlefield, which has just kind of worked. Whereas like Damon is very like, you kind of very similar actually.
I think I am going to go Draugr maybe with him.
It can be fun as far as I've like from friends who are playing it, like just being able to keep a straight face as much as possible while everything around you is in chaos can sometimes lead to the funniest moments. Like it's great roleplay prompts.
It's very difficult. I think one thing with like David, because he is serious, and I'm very like excitable and talk with my hands and things like that, but he's just like so just like this and looks very serious. That people are just like, oh, I didn't want to come over to you because you looked all scary and intimidating. I was like, no, no, I'm shitting myself in this situation.
Like, I think our only interaction with House Mortel last year was the was it last year where there was the tournament with the Green Knight?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it would be
Yeah.
last year. Yeah.
Was it last summit or the summit before?
I want to say it was a really hot one, so I want to say it was E3.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we like a few of the marchers had to use the Mortaire tent as the dressing room, and so there was this wonderful little cultural exchange where like it was sort of agreed OC just as a helpful thing, and then we just got such a patronizing like, of course you can dress here, darling, like yes, like we know that you just over there it'll just be you'll be covered in mud by the time you come back.
Was that E4 the year previous with the and we had a massive heat wave in September? Was it that one? With the was it the Barrion tournament, or was it a different? It was always tournaments in Dawn.
It was the one with the Grendel.
Yeah, was that? Yeah, that was
that one. Yeah, so that was our first event as our new characters. Was that one? Because Harnell was going to be potentially in that tournament, which I found out like after being like chatting to Nat, and they were like, oh yeah, you know, like kind of thought, you know, like Arnell would have been really cool in that tournament. I was like, stop it. So yeah, it would have been no, that was so, but you're in military council and things, aren't you? Sometimes
I'm a strategos, so I'm organizing the skirmishes. I also had the ridiculous realization after the first event of being strategos that like essentially what I've signed up myself up to do on my weekend off from like giving people instructions on what to do when fighting out in the woods, and then going and doing that and coming back and telling me how it went, that I now have got that same job at Empire, which
just doing it in character now.
That's a choice, but it's as a busman's holiday, it's lovely. And honestly, the network of strategoi around the Empire has been fantastic. It's just sort of the nod of like strategos.
It looks really cool. I must admit, when that came out, that's something I've had my eye on it for a little while, because I'm like,
I think that
I love skirmishes
for it soon.
Yeah,
our Dawnish one is so good. They're so good at it.
Well, because it's only recently become like an official Imperial title, right? So I think most of the people that were just doing it anyway got those positions. So we've already got someone good at Dawn. But yeah, I think it's good to bring a little bit of competition and all that.
Yeah. Mouse. Well, I think they might be stepping down soon or something like that. I can't.
Obviously, Mouse has been doing it.
Yeah, I think Mouse has been doing it for quite a long time.
Years, doing a great job.
Yeah.
It's like there was a recent reshuffle in Highguard because the long-standing, incredible strategos in Highguard died in the most sort of tragic battlefield romance. Like had their husband behead them on the battlefield so as to not let the Druge kill them, like that sort of level of drama that I'm sure you two can appreciate. And the replacement is 17 years old and has been LARPing since they were like 10 at Empire, like has done years of it at Empire, and every single time any of the other strategos do the like strategos nod in passing, he's like, oh, that's me, hello, like a puppy, and it's the best. Like protect these people.
Oh, that's amazing.
I have such a soft spot for like the teenagers who've come through LARP and sort of, you know, got to grips with themselves as humans through the process of it.
I mean, I tell you what, I mean, even adults do that. I mean, I've definitely found that. I mean, I always think, oh, I wish I'd found the hobby when I was a kid. There was like opportunities. So like for me, there was one kid at school that used to LARP. And I think me and my mates used to like the idea because we were, we painted miniatures and we played Magic the Gathering and all that type of stuff. But this mate of ours, he was a big guy, like he was like tall, and he sold LARP to us in completely the wrong way because he was just like, he basically sold it as like a full contact lads
Yeah.
sport, and we were
Yeah.
like, and they were like, oh yeah, we wear armor and we go full contact and we punch each other with us like, and we were like, no, I don't fancy that. And it was, and then it took decades after that before LARP started coming up in like media, people doing podcasts, people doing YouTube videos, and I'm like, oh, actually, LARP looks pretty good.
It's like the rugby version of like whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's sounded fun though. Oh yeah, you get to be a goblin, but yeah, we go full ham at each other. I was just like, no, I don't really I don't really fancy that. So the Game of Thrones game that we did, the first one, was that the first Game of Thrones set in that universe that you guys did, or have you done? Did you do
Yeah,
other
it
ones
was
before that?
actually. That was last January. Yeah, it was a little team of them who were really keen with a few different concepts for a Night's Watch game. At one point in the process, it was sort of bandied back and forth. There was a possibility that there was going to be a wildling camp as well, that was like player tickets to be a wildling and players to be the Night's Watch, but it would have inevitably immediately turned into all-out war between the two.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Murder, slot them all. Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting to me about like the Game of Thrones setting, because we're talking about Empire, like Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, it's like the opposite. Yeah, they're both fantasy, but you know what I'm getting at. Like Empire's gender blind and all this, and like Game of Thrones is very like strong themes. Like, and I know that it's a popular genre for LARP in other countries, but was that something like you and the team that were doing it were tentative about, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really I think it helped with the sort of bookend of that being Night's Watch games, because it does mean that you have this very removed population from the rest of the world. So regardless of what's happening in the rest of in the rest of the country, you have a specific order of people who aren't allowed to do certain things, and so it does mean that you don't have to change much before you can make it something that we can all have fun playing, while still having some of those themes on a lesser level. Because we just immediately went, okay, well, in this world, like the septums and the scepters are like, part of like the religious order, and there's a degree of religious gender freedom there. The Night's Watch has always just recruited women as well, and that's fine. And and they all still take the oaths of chastity and obedience to the realm and everything. They can't, they give up their marriage or whatever else.
Yeah, they did.
They definitely do that. And it's all the same. It's just it's just that very small change that maybe they can increase the range of people they've got there, and not, well, I don't know, like compared to the books, maybe have a few more people who are actually willing to go and do it, because it's either that or joining the Silent Sisters or whatever else in somebody's backstory maybe. Whereas Dragon's Hunt was a lot harder to make those choices on, and the sort of core team of that, we went back and forth on that a lot about whether certain elements of the game are going to be included. We aged everybody up, but the core team on that was Ren Stewart and Pascal Siddons, who sort of really informed a lot of the initial choices. And I ended up playing it, which was lovely.
Yeah, you played it, right?
Yeah, which was crazy. It was very much I kept telling myself that I was like quality checking my business to make sure that it was, people were having a good time. It's just a holiday.
I mean, for us, I think that was I think that's the best time I've ever had at LARP. I think was that game.
It was the hardest time I've ever had coming away from a LARP, and everyone I've spoke to said the same.
Yeah,
where it was, I just didn't want to stop being Elia, and I felt for a long time after that I still felt like I was holding on to her. But I feel like if there was another game, I wouldn't have been the same. Like what we had there was just so special and so I just loved it so much.
It was very much that lightning in a bottle thing, isn't it? Like we could try and do a sequel or a prequel or an alternative run of that with things slightly different, but without all the same people there. You know, some of them flew in from you know, Eastern Europe to play the game, and
they were amazing.
Yeah, that must have been really cool for you guys in running it and things like that, having people come from so far afield to play it, you know.
Yeah, it's happened a few times before, but it's usually only one or two people who are sort of visiting friends at the same time and sort of managed to, you know, come to one of the more episodic games. But that was definitely the first time that we've been able to go, okay, well, I'm gonna have to be a taxi service, because there's no way that we're going to let these people come all this way and then get stuck in Hampshire, unable to get from the train station to the site, because it's, you know,
oh, the easiest, is it?
Yeah. One of them flew over in her chainmail as well, because she didn't want to have to pay for putting it in the baggage.
Oh no, I should get that. Yeah.
Clever. I mean, it would be hilarious seeing them go through the detectors. I mean, unless I'm assuming it was like aluminium. I don't even know if that would. I think they would still get funny looks, right?
Yeah, I think you've got to do the chainmail shuffle. I
was going to say chainmail shuffle in the airport.
Can you imagine? The thing with that one though, that was like, so I know when we did the And Now My Watch Begins. We spoke to a few people obviously before we came that were regulars to like EYELarp and things like that. Was that one of the first times you did like pre-written characters? Because it wasn't like
was the first time,
because it wasn't like, obviously like Dragon's Hunt is like what people call like a bit more like Nordic, right? So you have a character, and that's that you get their goals, and obviously they have their backstory. But was that you just like going, oh yeah, we're gonna try this, you know, kind of, oh, we're giving people characters?
It was something that James Dance, who's one of the core group for that, he's been wanting to do that for a long time, and it was kind of an exercise in seeing how that would work. I think we learned a lot from it, including don't write 3,000 word backstories for every single person, because I think it got to the point where we were having too much fun to stop.
Yeah.
and so like the first one that got written was 300 words, and then the last one I wrote was 3,000, and I had to be like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, you don't have to know all of this, like please just skim it. Like I just couldn't stop, and I really enjoyed, you know, writing in some of these background characters who are never going to be seen again. Like one of them sent in a letter, or you know, and another one, I don't know, wanted to murder somebody else. Like there were some plot threads there, but it was like a needle in a haystack I gave her, you know.
Yeah. I feel like it's good, like especially you because you got a prompt there, haven't you? If you need it, like if you go, all right, you're making your own character. I've got to admit, like, because the way Empire works, and I don't know, I found this as well with the smaller LARPs. When you make your character, people don't really care that much about your backstory. I mean, unless it's like very relevant to the current story, like if you're a communist in a certain game or something like that, then it's kind of relevant. But mostly, people don't care that much. But when you've got like pre-written characters, they're then looking for those like connections, as in like where you're from. Oh, I know for a fact that there's someone here that's from where I'm from, or this I need to find out who this person is because they're having the same experience as me. So I guess that people like those prompts, right?
Yeah, and it can be a really good way to link up areas of the player base that wouldn't otherwise interact. And as you say, you know, sending people out to look for a person because they have a particular common thread, it can be really cool seeing the moments that happen because of that. And I think the trouble with backstories generally is that they're below the abstraction layer. Like the character starts as soon as you get there, and you're in costume, and you feel like, okay, I can run with this. This is my objective for the evening, or you know, this is the one thing I want to try to push in character. Whereas I think the kind of Nordic style written backstories, you do get a sense of weeks beforehand being able to start to get into the mindset of that character and start to figure out what their reaction would be to things in a way that maybe challenges more than coming up with your own character would, because I guess it's just a little bit more of a push.
I feel like it's I feel like some people view it as a bit more like it's maybe a difference in performing, right? So some people, like I like to come in and just kind of like see what happens, and I'll just react to the moment as it is, and then some people really like to you know, reach out to people like months before the game and be like, okay, I think if we do this, then we do, and they kind of do perform in that way. So they kind of know, they have an idea of where the story is going to go with their two characters. And I guess if you have in-depth backstories, people can kind of come in and prepare for that, I guess.
Yeah. There's a concept in Nordic LARP, it's probably another LARP as well, but I first encountered it at College of Wizardry and some of the offshoot games from that, of like pre-play. So setting up like a server or a website where you can have in-character interactions in like a low-level way before you start, which can really help with that kind of international player base, because you're all coming at it from very different styles of LARP, and being able to go like, well, this person has said that they are open to some, I don't know, bullying role play about how bad they are at magic sports of various kinds and they want to do that, and you know, but they want to be good at this thing, then you can kind of know what buttons to push without getting into kind of social awkward situations because of different styles being at play and different traditions and different like ways of looking at LARP.
Yeah, like we kind of did something actually similar with Dragon's Hunt. Myself, George, and Georgia, we made sure we like jumped on call. We actually got all the like, you know, we're literally going to role play that we're all like, you know, married together in this sort of situation. So we're like, we're going to have to go through all this awkward stuff now and figure out what are we comfortable with, what are we not comfortable, and then let's test, you know, what do we all want here. And we ended up like preparing so much of it ahead of time of what we wanted to do with these characters, so that when it came to the actual event, because like, you know, even if you tried to get there early, like things happen. I thought just in case we don't get to have that little like, hi, nice to meet you out of character before going in, because I'd never met George before that game. So I was like, okay, I've never met you before, so I should probably like say a little hello. I'm gonna be your wife for the weekend. And that made it really so much easier for us just to kind of like role play those roles for the weekend, and just you know, encourage a lot of other people's games as well. That's what I find is quite cool when you've got like a character that's already there, is that your people are going to be looking for you for specific things, and you're able to just like encourage that and have a bit of fun with it.
I'm like you. General Lannister was living in my head rent free for a long time afterwards, and like I had no intention of getting that attached to this horrible, stupid, sexy Lannister character. You know, it was just like I think it's just that kind of networking and feeling part of a core team of people, like, because every single house I'm sure had that same feeling of unity against everybody else. Even, you know, there might be friendships and there might be like alliances and things like that, but like we all had our people, and it was very kind of knives out, even when it was nicey. And that kind of knowing what other people's boundaries are, and knowing if you're you know, if you need to ramp it up or tone it down a little bit, like that. Like we ended up having a discussion over dinner, and Esme, who was playing Cersei, said, I don't feel like I've had enough bullying from all of you. Can you be worse to me, please? I want to be more of a villain because of you lot. And like she'd not really gotten the chance to be like much of a sort of a female character being sort of put out there in the market for marriage, because it turned out that, you know, Tywin had managed to broker his own marriage rather than like sorting out his daughter's. So then we sort of ramped up all of that stuff that could have been quite awkward if it hadn't been like her saying like, look, turn that all up, please, be awful, please. And we were.
No, it's freaking true though. Like, I mean, the Dorne team, most of us I didn't know like most of the people in that whole group, and literally timing happened and it was like we were family and we'd known each other forever. And the vibe that we got was so strong that we've literally come away from that, and I've been like, look, if something happens, if our characters die and we decide we want a different nation in an empire, I totally look them up and be like, hey, do you want to do a Brass Coast group?
That's
because
great.
that was just, it was so beautiful. And like, I've literally, after the event, I've messaged a few of them and been like, what do you play in Empire? Because can we just make a connection?
Yeah.
Because I want to role play with you more. Yeah. And that was amazing. And like, we've kind of done that since then, because it just had such a like I felt very loved and very looked after as Elia, with her like, you know, crazy brothers and stepsister and everything and all that like around her and everything. Like she was very much like, okay, I'm safe here.
Yeah, she had the potential to have a horrible time with everything that was going on. A
real horrible time.
And,
I had a lovely time.
Yeah, I think
climbing on me. It just turned the lights off.
I think the collective, like the player base in that game, I think collectively went, no, nothing's happening to Elia, because there was I don't even feel like there was at any point you were in danger where you could have been because what I loved about that game as well is there was a lot of mechanics that people didn't really know about. So like even like the Kingsguard mechanic, that was one of them. They were just like, oh, the children, and I was just like, and when I told people about the mechanic, they're like, oh shit, was that a mechanic? I'm like, yeah, like they could have been. In fact, like talking about that type of game. So like obviously like me and Robyn are married, and like there was a possibility that like I would have to then see my out of character wife in agony over dead children, right? So we had to have
yikes,
we had to have a talk about it. I'm just like, I might actually struggle if this I'm okay with it, because like I mean it was easy for Barristan because there was not a chance ever that he was going to be one of the ones that would let it happen. But I was like I might struggle a bit if you go really hard, so we'll talk about it,
Yeah, we had this whole thing on the way there, and like Oliver is like, right, I'm going to tell you about mechanic that you won't know about, but I think I need to tell you about it because I think we need to have this conversation. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably just as well it didn't happen, because I would have gone hard. There would have been tears, there would have been piercing screams. I would have made it everyone's fucking problem if they died.
As I understood it, because I also only found out about this in character because there was a point in the development process where Ren just went, if you're playing this game, I am deleting you from this thing. And so like I was there for like logistical help and like a bunch of other like elements of the game that were not plot, but then they fully kept so much of that away from me so that I would have the same player experience. So I only found out as well after the fact when the player of Jaime Lannister informed us about what he had been able to do. If like was it that if two Kingsguards?
Two. So the idea was the children were nearby, and
Queen Elia's
we
children?
So we were responsible as the Kingsguard for keeping them safe. So but if like it had to be two of the Kingsguard were to agree to basically it didn't have to be them that did the deed, but basically if a character wanted to, Kingsguard or not, they basically had to make sure that two Kingsguard were on side to let them
to step by and
whatever.
let that happen.
So,
but if the two Kingsguard themselves did it, then they would just be able to.
Well, they could have, easily,
so it was a thing that the Kingsguard were very aware of. But it's funny because really, like three. So three. So we had one NPC and then like five of us, six of us who were player Kingsguard, and I think only like two we were like
there was literally only a question mark over two of them.
One of them withdrew going to do that, right? like so Wentz came up to me every opportunity he possibly could to say the children are safe and well.
The children are safe. Everyone was so strong in that game. I think because I think there was several people that were getting confused who was NPCing and who wasn't, especially on that first night. Because I know that like people thought you were NPCing. I mean, people thought the entire like royal table was NPC. Like everyone was like so on point in that game, and I think we struggled to let go of those characters. For me, anyway, is because I wasn't really playing a character that I'd made. I just stepped into the shoes of like this legendary character. You only really got to be that character for a couple of days, and then you're out of them again. But that character is still like in like the ether of pop culture. I think was the crazy thing about that game.
I think it was a different experience for those of us who are playing characters who only exist in the books, or even for some people who only exist in the books as like a rumor of a person, or like people talking, telling stories about them. I think a lot of the female characters as well had that issue because Obviously we wanted to make sure that there was as wide a spread of interesting characters as possible, but my God, George R. Martin, like, so many
at least
of those
give
characters,
them names.
Like, I felt so sorry for Lady Piper, like Mattie, who did an incredible job as Colin Greyjoy's loving wife. And in the books, the only description of her is told by one of her stepchildren, who only remembers her nice brown hair and breasts, like, and soft breasts or something like that.
It was soft breasts. I think that was the line. Soft breasts.
Soft, specifically soft. And it's like, what are we supposed to think? Like she's a really interesting character, you know, being like this sort of weird nexus point between the horrible Ironborn and the rest of Westeros. And like, that's a fascinating thing to be able to play, like that dynamic. And that's all you give us, George? Like.
Yeah, I actually, I mean, there was a lot of people nervous about that game anyway, because a lot of people were like, they want to do those characters justice. I kind of shit the bed a bit, like, I think a week before it, when I started to realize how much, like, so a lot of these, what you're talking about, a lot of what we know from these characters that aren't in the main story comes from the mouth of Barristan. A lot of them, like, a lot of the Rhaegar stuff, a lot of the Arthur Dayne stuff, and I'm like, oh crap, like, I need to know all this shit now, you know.
He can just be watching, like, he doesn't have to write anything.
The first night though, like the first night we're sitting up at the table, and Rhaegar is like, Barristan, tell me a story.
I was like,
luckily I knew you'd been like studying as well. You were like,
I was
right.
like, luckily I memorized this story like yesterday. So let me tell you the story that I stopped a siege all on my own. Of course I did that, you know.
Did that, yeah.
Barristan was really interesting because, like, he was he was the only character that didn't have a blood relation in camp, which was interesting, because all the Kingsguard had blood relations. Literally everyone else there was obviously family, so a lot of, you know, people's loyalties was obviously tied to blood and all the machinations. Barristan was just like just out here on his own, just married to my oath though. Just he was an easy character to play in that sense, because I just like, well, I'm just going to do what's best for, you know, best for the realm, I guess, until they, you know, started trying to with the Trial of the Seven and all that, and they're like trying to get me to fight, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, it was I think the defining moment for me getting into character, because I always struggle at Eversley to get into character anyway, and I've had like 2 lovely moments in the last year where I've been able to play a game there. The previous one being Asphodel, where I was an ancient Greek, as you know, with you guys. But like that was a moment of like, I guess because I didn't know, I wasn't part of the game team for that at all, like that was much easier for me to just go, I'm just here on holiday, I'm gonna have a lovely time, I don't have to do anything, all responsibilities are out the window, I'm here to be silly and to have a nice time and to eat people.
Your Asphodel character looks amazing, by the way, with the arms and things like that. It's such a unique character. It's so cool.
A normal woman, and and managed to hide 4 additional arms in my costume until the second day, which was quite fun. But like, amazing. It was easier because I had that level of kind of sort of pageantry, I guess, like a sort of almost puppet costume, whereas Jenna is all sex appeal, which is not a character that I've ever played at all, but like I kind of try to get on the rest of the Lannisters level. But I had the moment of like getting in a costume, couldn't find any of the others, we were all being introduced to the royal family, like family by family, and like I got there in time for our slot to find that none of the rest of them were there. So I was told by the Greyjoys that they'd already gone in, and so I was like, well, okay, I've missed my entrance. My whole point, like I made a costume that had a sort of a dramatic reveal, so that I had, if it was up in like traveling mode, like traveling gear mode, it was all blue, and then I could undo one pin and it sort of all fell down like a sort of drag race kind of character sort of reveal, and it was all red. So the idea was that it was like Riverlanders by marriage, Lannister by birth.
I love it.
So it was just like a stupid, because I love that sort of nonsense, you know, like character stuff with costume, but couldn't bloody find the rest of them, and so I was like, well, my reveal is all for wasted, like just like grumbling in the entrance to the Viking village there.
It probably could have done with that actually, because that opening scene was pretty fucking intense. Like that, I don't know what it was about it. Like that when we were like, obviously, because I had being a Kingsguard was the best in that game, because I got to listen to every conversation, because no one, like, because we could just be anywhere. But yeah, that it was one of those moments where we just saw all the groups coming in, so I got a great introduction. But it probably could have done with your reveal. I think
it worked out okay in the end, because it turned out the reason that they weren't there was because they were all individually late, and so like they were all they were all still getting changed in various places. So I went back to the car park to see if I could find one of them, so at least we could enter together. And I found every single one of them all complaining that everybody else was too fast at getting changed. And I was just like, okay guys, I think maybe we've been cast quite well here. Okay, I guess we get to be the latecomers who arrive villainously late and get to do our reveal after everybody else.
I was gonna say, I remember you guys coming later.
Yeah, this is actually perfect, guys. And it also meant that, you know, we could spend a little bit more time getting into our ridiculous wigs, because we'd all just made terrible life choices in terms of like getting changed in the dark in the forest, with very little. I guess I'm so used to being able to have access to all of the Eversley Kits store area that I was just like, I can't use the same usual places. I guess I got to be like a regular customer and bring my own mirror. just
must have been like the last game that we did. Now March has ended. I literally was like, I've seen people get ready over there at that mirror, and no one's there currently, and I think the crew are all ready. Maybe I can go get ready there. And now that I've discovered that, I think I'm gonna try that each time. That's way easier.
Yeah, usually that's fine. It's just every time I went over there, Ren had all the crew barking at me and telling me to go away, like literally doing dog noises at me until I left. So I was thrown out of my own like workplace. Honestly, it was very rude.
You're like, I'll wear headphones. I just want the mirror.
Please, I just need this wig to not be like this. But it was really lovely, and it really did feel like, oh no, this is, we're the bad guys. Okay, and like we weren't even that bad, but like I guess it's just when you get into that mindset of like, yeah, everybody hates these guys in the TV show, and for good reason. They are bad, but like none of the things that they are doing individually is for anything other than like the legacy of their family and to make sure that they don't all die horribly in their beds. And like that's reasonably likely to happen in Westeros, so you know.
Yeah, I don't think they were any worse than any other family there, to be quite honest.
No, we just had the trappings of villainy, like walking around with a wine glass at all times, and yeah.
Oh yeah, it was so good. I got to admit, like that game definitely like upped my confidence in LARP. Even like, because I was speaking to Johnny at Nowhere Which Has Ended, and we said, he was like, you know, how long, like, you guys been in quite a few this year? I'm like, well, we just started coming this year, and just because it was real cool to have the bookend of like Now My Watch Begins and Now My Watch Has Ended, and they kind of like story wise they kind of followed similar beats, right? And it was interesting to have like how I was role playing at that kind of like Friday night Molestown, you know, kind of scene in the first game compared to how I was role playing kind of confidence wise, and even just how I was how I was role playing with people at the end of the year was like a massive difference. You know, I found a huge difference, and it's because it's just a different environment from Empire. You know, it's and you get, when you get to know the people, when it's a small group of people and you do start to see the same faces, and there's that, you then have that kind of trust in those people, don't you? So you just like, oh no, I can feel confident to go up and I know these people are up for this type of role play. You
Absolutely.
know? Yeah.
It's such a it's not really something that's talked about that much, because obviously we do try to make, like, I think everybody who LARPs tries to make it a space that new people can come into, because it's you know, new blood is everything in it. But it's like when you're new enough that everything feels fresh and exciting, and you're not going, oh, same crew members come back in the same hat I saw them in 3 weeks ago, like but like you still have that kind of freshness, but then enough of an understanding to go like, okay, these are the beats that we're working with here. That person over there is, you know, I know that they really love dramatic role play and they love that kind of those real emotive moments. So I know I can just sort of turn that up a little bit and not feel so self what's the word? Self-conscious of that kind of interaction, because it is a social game. Like all of these things are social situations, and it's an absolute labyrinth to negotiate at first. Like first few times I went to Empire was first year of the game, but like towards the end of the year, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Like I brought my sister along one of the times, and she was 12 and went, this is weird, and like we went to the academy. She escaped from the academy. She escaped onto the battlefield and then just hung out with some Jotun and had a lovely time.
Nice.
Like, the Jotun are great.
Well done.
Can I join them? They seem like the orcs are cool. Can I be one of them? It's like, I'm not wearing no mask. Like,
Or mask on. There you go. You're old enough.
Permanent monster crew.
Yeah, it's funny because like when we started LARPing, it was like very much just all like Empire. So it was a real good, even though like it's fantasy again, so it wasn't like massively different, but yeah, just having a clean break away from just like Empire talk and being like, oh yeah, we get to play in a different setting was a big deal. So like you wrote both of our characters, Tranquil and Florian. So I mean, one thing I do like about the cinematic, the rules that you guys have there, like this is the cinematic like combat and things like that. You know, it's like it's reactive. But you can kind of like, as long as you don't get yourself into a like stupid position, you can kind of dictate when you're gonna die, which was interesting because we were playing. We like obviously playing characters that are tied together in that way romantically. You know, we only like ball gown with each other. But the previous, so that was in the January. In the previous E3, E3, we had died and lost our Empire characters, and we struggled like hell with that. Like and even just like the way we died, and there was a lot of bleed because it was just like you know, because I felt bad for Robyn losing her character, and I got to just going through that grieving process with those characters, and then we got to Now My Watch Begins, and we were like, I was like, we got to a point with ball gowning, and I was like, Robyn, I don't really want to do the tragic dying in each other's arms again. So we decided,
we can't do it again.
I don't want to do that again. So we'll just see if we can survive to the end, you know.
Valid, honestly.
It was too much, but to show the growth, we did die in one another's arms at Now My Watch has ended, and we had an awesome death. You killed me actually, Oliver. Like,
oh no, I
did. You took me out so that I would become one of them, and then we died, you know, in a little heap together.
Like the two pieces of information I got told at the end of the game, because it was a bit mad in that last 20 minutes. And it was a real frenzy of like who's lived, who's died. I also got told it was TPK because I couldn't see that section of thing. So when I was doing the debrief, I was like, TPK, and then was like, no, that's about it. Oh, okay, not the TPK. Well done.
We're still time in.
Get him. I was told Florian and Drunk will have died in each other's arms, and I was like, oh well, like classic. And I was like, oh, and the Bracken and the Blackwood have also died in each other's arms, killing each other, and also preventing the sword that would stop the White Walker from actually being used on the White Walker, because they used it on each other because they hate each other that much. I was like,
so beautiful.
That moment was so cool. That was one of my favorite. I think that's in my top 5 ever LARP moments, because I kind of knew as we were coming up to the village, and I knew what was going down. I was like this is obviously the finale. It's obviously going to be horrendous, and I was just like, when we were walking up, I was just like, if I see the White Walker, I'm just going for it, because we got to, you know what I mean? Because it's just way too cinematic, and it was. We were walking. Obviously, we saw that amazing thing that the team did with the bodies, and they laid all the bodies out.
The spiral,
the spiral. Yes. It was chef's kiss. That was so good. Even though we knew exactly what was going to happen, out of character brain, we knew what was going to happen.
Walk up to it, like come on.
We were like, let's walk up, and then they just rose, and then. I was like, I mean, because we could have basically legged it and gone and tried to get out. But like Jonquil had the candle. I had the dragon glass. And I knew, I was like, this isn't gonna work like on a white walk out of character. But I'm like, if I see one anyway, we're fighting off all the whites, and then just the mist was in the perfect position where it was just really thick, and I just the white walker like appears like just a face in front of us, and I'm already like on my knee like this, and I just had the dragon glass, and I'm like, yeah, this is happening. And just ran up, just stabbed him, grabbed my hand, and just like threw me back. And I'm like, that was so cool. And then we just got like surrounded, didn't we? And I was like,
it was just like took us down. And then you like you stabbed me like to make sure I wasn't going to turn with the dragon glass, and then you fell onto the dragon glass in front of me, like, and we were collapsed in a heap, and like our hands though were like interlocked, and all I heard was like crew walking past me like, oh, that's so sweet. I was like, right, they've seen it. Okay, let's get out.
Yeah, that was so yeah, even though we didn't give them like the end, the fact that you guys did like the follow on from that story was amazing, because those characters then got like a real cool arc there. So
like, don't get me wrong, the crew love it when a player shows up and goes, I died. Like, it's like inevitably they will sort of become an honorary crew member and will be cheered on in whatever new role they want to do, whether that's joining the crew for a bit or, you know, re-rolling. A lot of the time it's sort of a banter back and forth on figuring out what that next character is going to be for that person, because they kind of want to make it a positive experience, so they've had a good time, they've accepted the death that was cool, and, you know, have created role play for everybody else in there. It's like a really cool sacrifice that person has done. But like, sometimes the best stories are because people have nearly done that, and nearly had an incredible ending that would have been a kind of short-lived cool thing, rather than necessarily, you know, something that's like part of a wider sort of story. But it's you know, it's just, let's pretend and run around in the woods. It's
I'll give it, like, the people that come and crew for your games are they're amazing in general, but like, so some of the times I've gone in there and we're doing like combat encounters, and I'm like, how they have the energy to just keep respawning, coming back around, and giving us a good game every single time is amazing to me. Because I think you I think you had said you were short on crew at that game, right? So I was like, wow, like they did not come across that way at all.
No.
Yeah, we quite often have like a 10 to 15% dropout rate. I think towards the end of last year, people had kind of booked themselves up for so many different things, and there was a lot of like chest infection things going on that was just going around. And so I think we had about a 35% dropout on that one, and it was a bit of a struggle. But we had some reinforcements come in from people who lived nearby who just went, any chance there's a crew ticket? And that does happen quite a bit. But the trouble is, there's some of them who are so keen to fight that when there's a game that doesn't have quite so much, it's like we have to get them fighting each other in the car park and things like that, because we just need to keep them busy. Like Second Breakfast was notorious for it. Like I had to get Johnny fighting Becca and Ellen in the car park for a good like half hour, so that they'd all stop being grumpy about the fact that they were expected to go in and have like judge a pie eating competition or something, you know, like go on the encounter where they have to go and collect the bees and put them back in the beehive because the beekeeper is sad that her bees have gone missing. Like that was the level, you know.
the importance to make sure your crew is satisfied, otherwise every loser in the pie eating competition is getting beheaded.
yeah it's not going to end well. Like the dwarves are coming back or something, like like the like inevitably there'll be weird energies that they direct somewhere. One of those was because it was Upper and Lower Frogmore. I know that's me too. Like there's the Upper Frogmore and Frogmore Green. One side called the other Lower Frogmore, and that was me in character. Like that was infesting my brain. Because they both had, you know, slightly aggressive names for each other that weren't quite the right one. They changed each other's signs so that they said like Frogmore Brown and like things like that. But there was one occasion where there was still quite a lot of energy in the crew base quite late at night, and so they created Middle Frogmore, which was on the bridge between the two villages, and they declared independence. And every time Johnny came over there, he'd be like, Kitty, you need to get your crew doing things. So they're all hanging out over here. And he'd look around and there'd be a lot of familiar faces. All of them were players. They were just like, anarchy, we can do a silly thing. And like, it was so low level in terms of like, you know, world plot. But Johnny was livid every time. I think it's because he didn't get to have a nice fight with people. He didn't get to like double foot plant somebody in the chest that day. And so he had a lot of pent up like frustration about that. And so got real annoyed about the concept of Middle Frogmore. When I was just like, the mayor of the Frogmore area has been put in a cage by the people of this town, and she's having a lovely time. Like, I'm having nothing to do with this. This isn't on me.
Yeah. So Second Breakfast sounds it's one of the games that I'm sad I missed out on, you know, experiencing it, because I love the concept of it, you know.
Yeah. We're doing a Nightmare one this year.
I know, I saw.
Thing is, right, so I saw the Nightmare one and I was like, if I were to crew, because I've not crewed ever, and I was like, if I were to crew, that'd be freaking cool to crew. Do like a Nightmare Second Breakfast. I feel like that's where it'd slip in quite well.
I haven't released any information about it yet, and I think it's because like there's different directions it could go in, and one of them, like, people keep saying, oh, like the Scouring of the Shire, but that's just bureaucratic Nightmare Hobbit LARP. Nobody wants that, because it's just the most depressing of all of the possible different options. Like, it needs to be a nice mix of comedy and horror to really nail that, like, that vibe.
You know, like all the crops around them turning into something and coming back, like that type of thing. Like,
I think
something that you would expect.
A little bit of that, right?
Yeah. I mean, because you've got the whole like, I mean, because there's like the Goblin Wars and things like that, wasn't there, where they were talking about, like, you know, invented the game of golf by, you know, that. So that type of like comedy, but it's a little bit scary. And,
golf is canon in Tolkien.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Golf. All right. So Menhirs, because I knew we were going to go.
We need to talk about Menhirs.
Menhirs Fate. I knew this would be tricky. So. Why don't you tell us what this project Menhirs Fate is, and what your role is in it, if you can.
So basically Menhirs Fate is a new fest LARP that's starting in April this year, and the idea is that it's a lot of the team have gone to like pretty much every fest LARP under the sun, and we're going for something that's kind of high fantasy as a concept, a bit more of the sort of tropey fantasy elements that that Empire stayed away from. It's very sort of bright fantasy as a world, where it's been really fascinating to work on, because I guess I have always been thinking about LARP in certain parameters, and working with a larger group that kind of throw out ideas that I would immediately go, I don't think that we can feasibly do that, and then like they'll come up with ideas of ways to do that, and it's been really cool to be part of a wider team. We're sort of we're really in the sort of pipeline stage at the moment. I've been editing tons of information that's like so close to come out. I think probably the Sanctuaries briefs are dropping at the moment for so Kairos, Morvalis, and Saradonia, the three kind of more sort of religious bent nations.
Because we got the gods recently, because we were like last night we were like sitting like reading through all the gods, trying to like figure out like, you know, where we're going with some of these things, and we were like obsessing over those, especially the fact that they have like symbols and stuff attached to them. I was just like,
that's been like
to show this.
Johnny's been really deep in those minds for a little while, because the idea with that is that the gods have aspects. So there's 12 gods, but when they show themselves to humans, you can't distill an entire god into a person without losing most of it. Like, so it's just a sort of a facet of the overall kind of gem of that god. And so it means that we can phys rep that with different crew members depending on what the kind of role entails. So, you know, the god of war has different sides to it that might be very different from what people are expecting from a god of war, you know. And the idea as well is that so much of the game is able to be found out as you go. Like the idea is that it's scalable, and that there is like a kind of a nexus hub of information that is currently available within the world, but they have lost a lot of that information because of something called the fading, which was a magical event that has like made a lot of people forget about things outside of the sort of last vestige of the world that they currently live in. So there's tons to be rediscovered that they have lost over the last couple of generations, and there's tons of sort of the world to be reclaimed and made back into their 9 nations. There's 9 nations that are split up into sort of 3 realms with similar themes, and the idea is that those 3 realms have had sort of existing alliances against each other, and then because of the kind of apocalyptic situation they found themselves in with the corrupted, we're calling them, which is the kind of dark gods that have been influencing people and forming armies and forming cults around them, that they've lost a lot of that world, but are now fighting back together and having to like work together and put aside their differences to create or like rediscover the world that they've lost and create a new path in life.
So it's very like,
I do like that idea of like this
No, go ahead, Robyn.
I do like the idea of that sort of like the sort of like fade and everything, and it's such a perfect way to kind of like bring like a new sort of system in place, because it also minimizes the amount of stuff we need to try and know before it. Like, I mean, just speaking for myself, trying to remember a lot of information before an event is challenging. So actually being able to like discover things in the game, that's
the idea is, you know, some things like oral tradition have been able to stay a little bit more than things that are written down, and so some of the nations like Erdravan, which is a very kind of nomadic barbarian kind of flavored nation, so much of their storytelling is just stories back and forth, that there might be snippets in the things that they tell each other and the proverbs that relate to lost information, but because they've continued, you know, talking about them, or because festivals keep being celebrated year after year, even through the bad times, they still remember the kind of, you know, the reason why we celebrate this festival on this day, even if, you know, the books on it have disappeared. They still have enough of the information to be able to go, we know the story overall, just not like, you know, the nitty-gritty. But it means that, you know, we've got this area of the game called the guilds. So there's the Treasure Hunters Guild, the Adventurers Guild, the Court of Daggers, and the Bankers Guild, and they're basically ways in which people can get into the side of the game that they enjoy, and really delve into areas that they might, you know, find a side of LARP that they hadn't appreciated before. Because I mean, when I was playing Empire in the Brass Coast a few years back, I got really into the kind of treasure hunting side of things. Like, you know, Johnny was like, oh, you want to play like a Lara Croft character? I was like, no, I want to play Nicolas Cage in National Treasure. And being able to do the occasional little plot line that was kind of very much that flavor was great, but that kind of thing is quite difficult to get hold of in LARP unless there is a pipeline to it, you know.
It's a very, especially in Empire, just the way that type of game is, it's very, but it's very much based on that political PvP thing. It's not, this game sounding very much more like D&D in LARP at a larger scale. You know?
Yeah, that's the intention. You know, because so many of the people who are getting into LARP in the last couple of years, you know, started playing D&D in lockdown, have progressed from that and want to, you know, especially at that point when, you know, we're all indoors, and want to actually be out in a field and enjoy, you know, a drink, sitting down by a fire, and be around that ambiance. And I think it's something that's really important, like that just, regardless of the LARP side of things, just that social connection and sort of sitting down with people you don't know and sharing, you know, a story or a song, and like that kind of environment is just, I think it's just, there's nothing like it in hobbies wise.
No.
And that's how most of like the sort of like the lore and the history and all of that seems to like come about, is those sort of campfire discussions where we're all role playing, we're all, you know, using what we know about the LARP already, but also adding our own bits into that, and that's how it kind of grows. And you know,
like being able to lean over to somebody, you're like, oh, you were there, weren't you? What happened after that with the guy with the cow? Do you remember? And that sort of shared storytelling that comes from that. Some of the best stories are largely improvisational after, like, you know, a joke back and forth between people who don't necessarily know each other that well, and yeah, it's a mad one, honestly, as a job. But I'm running the monster management team, which is what I've been calling it's a kind of NPC plus skirmish plus our dungeon tent.
Well, and the sound of that
dungeon tent. Can you go back to that one?
A dungeon tent, you say?
Yeah, so it's something we're currently building. So it's but the idea is basically an environment where we can set up skirmishes or encounters or puzzles, whatever, that is like a standing encounter tent on a bigger scale, a bit more modular, the ability to kind of shuffle the insides around so that we can create different environments, because I've got so many crew at Eversley who are incredible at creating those like very improvisational small scenes for people on like a kind of a rotating board of silly things.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know we kind of saw it at Max's game at like Eldridge Isle. They had like you had Ledgar, we're giving everyone this experience, and they were doing these encounters like one after the other, and everyone loved them.
Yeah, they were fantastic. I like my regret with Eldritch was that I was on too many teams, because I was supposed to be catering and running the encounter tent and doing some sort of odds and ends on site. I got to the point where I delegated so many of those roles to people that I knew would be great at it that I sort of didn't have a role anymore. And so I was like, oh, well, I've got 2 hours to kill now. Where do you want me, Max? And so I ended up having a lovely time with the Mafia at that game and getting really, really invested in it, way more than I was expecting to. But because of that, Hazel and Ez, who were running that encounter tent, just sort of had, I guess, more free reign without me backseat driving them. And it was really cool to see the stuff that they were just pulling out of the air that was kind of,
oh yeah, look, they made me feel very comfortable just before putting me in a straitjacket and then burying me alive. Like they made me feel really comfortable before that. Like, yeah,
just normal stuff. The clown who was just really friendly. And
oh my god, I've seen pictures of the clown, and I'm not even scared of clowns, but that thing, jeez,
yeah. Beck did a great job. She was terrifying. But yeah, just really cool to see what people like. Something I'm really passionate about is that, like, we have all these people come through the kind of boot camp of crew, and some of them come down frankly too much and should go home a bit more so that they can be better rested between times that they're in the woods. Please, have you seen your family at any point in the last 2 years?
They're all sitting on the other side of this being like, we're fine, all right. Give us more.
Okay. But they come through this kind of boot camp of ridiculous nonsense at Eversley, and we end up with these incredible, like, some of them are so young and they're so talented, and they just come up with like a whole concept for like half a lot like encounter that just needs like a little bit of polish, and then they can run it, and they do, and like we sort of give them a lot of pressure sometimes in terms of like we're giving them the freedom to do something and fully trust that they will because they've sort of proven themselves over the course of like the previous couple of events or the previous day or whatever, and so it's ended up with this incredible community of like talented, weird and wonderful people who've got like ridiculous skill sets but are also like so young. It makes me grumpy about how young and talented they all are. I felt that very much at Dragon's Hunt with just looking around the different camps and going, you shouldn't be as good at this as you are. I'm livid. Stannis Baratheon, how are you so good at what you're doing? Like, we can't be friends because Ren has specifically written in that we don't like each other so that we won't hang out, because like we'd apparently hung out and been too capable at the previous few games, and so she was like, no, you're gonna hate each other and you're gonna like it, okay? And so as a result, spent no time with him apart from when he was being horrible to me, and it was great. But like, just these people, they come out of nowhere, and I think that's the real sort of, that's the engine that I've been trying to sort of put into Menhirs Fate. Like, we've got some like nation support, which is our kind of version of egregores. Persephone has been overseeing that, and she's sort of project managed the first sort of 3/4 of the project, and now she's gone into that as her main role. And she's just stacked it with people from so many different systems, so many different walks of life, who are just so good at different things altogether. And it's been really lovely to see the kind of relationships forming before the game for each of these like national departments that are kind of, it's not quite so mystical as egregores, but they're not like nation command like some systems have. They are very much here to support the nation and to, you know, have a magical sort of tie to the nation and make sure that kind of, that they don't lose everything, like they're the sort of the last vestige of that kind of national spirit. And it's been really cool to see that kind of, because like vast variety of different systems that people are being pulled from, but that just like constant sort of outpouring of like, I can do this, like I'm a composer, do you need any music? Like that's sort of like, okay, yes, thank you.
I'll tell you what, yeah, LARPers do a very good job of making you feel like inadequate. I got just like people are like, all my LARP friends are just like, oh look, yeah, I drew this, or I just could, like you say, I composed this, or oh, I can do this for you, or I can write this poem. I'm like, okay, and you're just like, wow, this is crazy. I can do a podcast, I guess.
It's awful, isn't it? Like, I don't know, quite frankly.
So the nations, are they going to be like, because obviously, you know, an empire, they're all, you know, we're all separated out into different groups, and I think it works the same as some of the others, like Curious Pastimes, they've got all their groups, something like that. Is there going to be a similar type thing where people are going to like camp with their own and go on adventures with their own and that?
To a certain extent, camp with their own, yes. We've got a kind of a wheel based like sort of camp plan set up with like the central hub of the guilds in the middle, and then each of the nations branching off and like separated in, well, not separated so much, but like camped next to their realm mates, so that we can have that kind of like, because we've planned kind of inter-realm festivals for events 2, 3 and 4, as things that they historically have done together, so you know, to just celebrate their sort of the things they have in common, with the idea that like the main body of the celebration is happening back home, but let's bring a little bit of that here so that we can all feel that, you know, what we're missing. And then the idea is that there will be some sort of camp incursions, but not necessarily camp attacks, with the rifts opening and things coming through and popping into Haven, the sort of magical chunk of land that the gods have provided us with for the campaign. So yeah, the central hub of each of those will be in each national thing, but beyond that, there's sort of more availability of international cooperation for quests.
So you can still play with your mates, basically. If you've got a group and one of you wants to be in Erdriv and the other wants to be in Valdriff, you can play together, basically.
Yeah, and it's a classic thing of like, you can be sleeping in somebody else's tent in, you know, a different nation, if that's your friend who's given you space in their tent. It doesn't necessarily have to be that deep of like, you know, we are forming a group together. It can just be, I've rented this space to my friend from Valdriff in exchange for, you know, some lovely coffee from the Wonder that he has managed to get hold of, you know. Just a lot of international cooperation and international kind of back and forth.
So it's like, I'm looking forward to it. Like because we've started putting together a kit.
What nation?
Valdriff.
Fine.
See, it's already started. Not even there yet. It's already started.
We've upset a few people by saying Valdriff.
We are going to be, you know, knights in shining armor. We're going to save the day. For a change.
Never done that before.
Never done that before. It's what everyone guessed anyway. They were just like, "You're going to Valdriff?" Because I'm like, Mark wanted us to be in More Valor, so we were like, "Well, you're not going to More Valor?" Like, I was like,
going to be goths over in the nation that Mark has written.
Just like we kind of like, we kind of already play that in Empire. So.
Well done for really pushing the boat out then, because that was definitely. I only say this as the lead writer of Hammerstadt so far. Like I had just so much fun writing that nation and putting in a lot of sort of the pratchety tropes that I really enjoy about like cities in fantasy settings, and it's been just so lovely seeing the kind of people grab hold of that and take it. And I very much believe in like, there is only a certain point that you can continue to sort of feel ownership for a thing before you have to set it out into the world and see what people do with it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how each of the different nations on the field take that kind of spirit that has been kind of distilled and make it into something really interesting and different, because you can never plan for 100% for what players are going to do with things.
It's going to be interesting because it's going to be, obviously we've got people coming in from who are saying they're going from like you say different systems. We've got like, you know, established long time LARPers, and there's going to be a lot of new people coming as well, you know, so it's going to end up with a brand new LARP coming in at ground level. It's going to be really interesting to see all that kind of thrown together and see what comes out, you know.
Yeah,
there's
sure.
a lot of brand new like LARPers. Like looking in at the Menhirs Discord channel, like there's so many, like it seems to be every day there's somebody like, hey, I've never LARPed before. How do I come and do this and everything? I'm like, oh, there's a lot of brand new LARPers coming to Menhirs. Like you said, it'll go along with all these other systems. It's going to be like, I'm excited. It's going to be exciting to see how it all works and how it all goes together and everything.
I think it's going to be a real learning curve at that first event, and we may well change up some things between E1 and E2, or E2 and E3, most likely, because there's a bigger gap there. But yeah, it's incredible to see like just how excited. I think there was a lot of people who have been wanting to LARP for a while, but see the sort of the behemoths of Curious Pastimes and Empire and some of the really long-standing systems as just like kind of a scary thing to sort of dip your toe into when there's that much lore and that much that many experts on the field, right? It's a potentially scary environment. So I think being able to offer a space where everybody's in the same position right from the start is hopefully going to be really positive for the hobby overall. And I think it's only going to be that's how I felt about this throughout, is that we are only benefiting the hobby as a whole by having more availability in the market and potentially more legitimacy in terms of, like, you know, going to the bank and having to tell them that, oh yeah, this is my job, you know, if they've heard of it because of you know, seeing the documentary about LARP that Empire featured in, or things like that. It's only positive for us and makes us all look less like, you know, weirdos in the woods.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what we want, right? We want more LARPs, we want more opportunities, we want more people out there creating things in this sphere, and it makes it more like just more accessible to everybody who wants to be part of it. And yeah, it means I don't get as many weird looks at work. People know that.
Well, yeah, I mean, media, I don't know what your view on it is, Kitty, but like media, like as soon as I got into LARP, I was like the media is kind of hamstringing it, is so weak. And I get why, because it's difficult, because you can't just like film it. You know, you can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to film some people LARPing, because it's not really, it's just a point of view. We've talked about this so much on the podcast. We've talked about so much on, but yeah, it's a point of view experience, in my opinion. So yes, I know it's difficult, but also there's like, I think there's been years of this, like, not, I don't know if secrecy is the right word, maybe just people guarding their hobby that they do. But because of that, it struggles to grow as just, it struggles to grow in the zeitgeist, because it's like, but now we've got more people making, you know, media about LARP, then it's going to be a little bit less, like you say, like, oh, this is what I do for a job, you know. But then the more popular there is, the more space there is for you know, newer projects as well. You know, that's what I want. You know, more choice of things to go to, you know.
There's some incredible, really out there projects, but the trouble is that in order to, you know, be able to run them most of the time, it's, you know, it's a good £400 a ticket, and it's a pity that that's the sort of range that we've got, is sort of the under £100 large systems, or, you know, medium-sized systems, or then the more bespoke experience on that kind of level. I genuinely think the best depiction of LARP that has been done by the British media was in the Pepperami commercial that we nearly did when I got an email about it. And it ended up, I sent them the way of a chap called Gideon down in Cornwall, who runs, or possibly Devon, who runs sort of similar kind of small LARPs down there. It ended up being two guys who were kind of YouTube famous kind of fellas, who it was like a series they did that were Pepperami commercials about one of them introducing the other to various hobbies to see, like, to have like a wild
I have
time.
seen this. Yeah, I have. I've not seen the actual commercial. I've seen the behind the scenes somehow. I think
Right.
I think I saw a reel, yeah, of
Yeah,
these guys, and it was like, I think
yeah.
they do like a LARP encounter or something where
They
they were like,
did,
yeah,
yeah. The guy who runs the stuff down there, he does sort of stag do events and things like that, as well as like more standard um LARPs. So I've previously, when I get emails from people saying like, hey, I've never LARP before, can I bring my stag do to Five Kingdoms? And I was like, no, please don't. Like, as much as, I would like you to get into this hobby, the people who are there would not enjoy this. And, feel free to come along as a group of friends who want to try the hobby, but as your stag do is, and so I've kind of sent them his way before and done that kind of bespoke weekend or day long sort of encounter thing for them, so it was perfectly judged for that. And it just meant that it was just a whole load of larpers shooting some guys like with arrows, and I think at one point there might have been a LARP safe pepperami. There was certainly a LARP safe what's it called, turnip that Bob's made. The Goblin Workshop ones that was being thrown around, but like genuinely better than any movie depiction that I've seen.
Like honestly, like the choice of like depictions in media of LARP is just so small, and that most of them are just not that great at all.
I think a lot of us have been burnt from it. Like we've previously been involved in like student films and things like that, where that we allowed people to film. This was before I sort of professionally worked in the industry, but as a crew member took part. And the people who were very keen to do the filming and everything had the best of intentions, and then their professors for their final grade just sort of thought it would be much more edgy if they made us look like idiots. It's just it's tough really to get that kind of realistic view of it.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think LARP is literally for everyone. Like certain LARPs aren't for everyone. Certain types of LARP, styles of LARPs, but I think LARP. I mean, it's literally what every human child does on the playground. It's just you just add some rules in to make it kind of fair, but literally that's what we all do. Like it's a part of like a lot of jobs as well, like people in the armed forces, they LARP all day long, that's they it's action role play, so right, we've been a bit greedy with your time, Kitty. We're going over time. Do you want to talk about like when the first Menhirs is, and
it's the first weekend of April. You can stop my wall chart, but it's just out of view.
We'll put all the information on screen.
I think it says the 4th to the 6th. I want to say it's the 4th to the 6th of April.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
I think it's about 5 weeks away as of recording. I think.
I don't say these things.
We've both got wall calendars that we just can't quite see.
That's the first one. Second one's gonna be the second weekend of May, and then we're running in August and September as well.
4 events. So do people need to? Can people just come to any event? Is there a story that is like you have to come to all 4, or is it something you just rock up to anyone?
It's like an ongoing campaign, so there will be story beats at each of them that are part of the ongoing story, but you can absolutely show up and well, buy a ticket online first, and come along. We're gonna have a great roster of traders as well, so there's a lot of things like LARP weapons and costuming that will be able to be bought in the trader area. And it's gonna be pretty exciting being part of a new thing.
Oh, I have one question. What is, or who is Menhir? Like, what's it?
So it's a sort of magical. It's a bit, well, in real life it is a big, those are big stones. And I was really keen to include Brythonic terminology as part of like the sort of world building, because I think we want to make it a British LARP. Like, this is UK LARP, right? And so like as a Welsh person, like coming into it and sort of going, no, this, you're all overthinking the pronunciation of this, guys, because some of them like almost sounding kind of Wild West with some of the interesting pronunciations at the start. I was like, if we just say this enough, people will know the words, so we don't have to worry. But like within the game, it's a sort of nexus point of magical energy that the gods have placed there. There are others in the world as well, but the possibility is that others can be found to like progress the story at certain points, but it's sort of a point in which the weavers, which is like a kind of ritual magic that is potentially quite improvisational, rather than necessarily having like a strict ritual text or ritual parameter, can use in order to do weavings as a group. Yes, there are a couple of other guilds that I didn't really mention so much because they are kind of slightly different in format of quest objectives than the adventurers and treasure hunters and the court of daggers. There's also the bank, which is a kind of god's tent in character, so that things can be processed in character and can be part of the overall world, and the sort of central hub area, so people don't have to leave the game area for a long time to process things, and potentially do role play in there as well, rather than queue, because it's one of those things about like fest LARPs. Once you start having a lot of processes, you can be leaving the game for a long time in order to make sure those things happen. So we've tried to build that in as a way to prevent people necessarily having to leave the game area all the time.
I like that. That's really good, actually.
Yeah.
I do hate that when you're like playing a game, you're like really involved, you're like, I need to go and do this thing, and you're literally just queuing.
It just takes you out of the moment, doesn't it? And there's also the technically the Weavers Guild, which is the central hub area where the menhir will be inside a tent with a kind of projection ring around it, so that fire and special effects like that can be created, which I saw the prototype of a few weeks back when we had a photo shoot, and it was really cool. Like, this is a thing, I'm not a techie person, but like so seeing all the creative output of people who are doing things that I have no idea about, it's been like, this is really exciting.
No, it sounds incredible.
Sorry,
like,
I'm getting really
like,
weird.
No, you're fine, because it's like I've been like super excited about like trying something new and seeing it, but like after speaking to you as well, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I kind of want to see all these things now.
It's gonna be a very interesting one, I think, all hitting the ground running together, and like, because Johnny and I have so much experience in running smaller LARPs that like we're not daunted by the idea of running tons of encounters, and like he's running the skirmish team and is on the plot writing team, so like is very entrenched in that kind of, we make an encounter, we send the encounter out, we deal with, we write down plot things and pass that up the chain and things, and so that side of things is like, that's I've done that, it's fine. But new venue and having everybody there in one feel, I think that first moment is going to be like, okay. It's going to be a moment, I think. It's also very funny that there is an actual wizard's tower on site that we've been referring to as the wizard tower, and but it's not, it's shipping containers stacked up on top of each other that for the festivals they use
the wizard's tower.
They use it to like have like 360-degree like scope on if there's any issues, and so it's on our map as like the wizard's tower, and I've forgotten the real name for it, so if I'm in a meeting with the people who run the site, sorry, I only know LARP terminology for the things that
This is tough. I'd expect it from a LARPer, probably.
Well,
Wizards.
This is it, trying to explain things that to us are normal to like people whose job is real life things.
It's funny though, like people are more kind of, I don't want to use the word accepting because it makes you sad, but people are more like receptive. There we go. People are more receptive, I think, these days. Like I will, like, I'll tell my clients now that I'm too old to have like geek shame these days, but like, and a lot of them do actually kind of sort of get it. They go, oh no, like my brother reenacts, and they kind of get it, whereas I know it used to be, when I used to talk about like cosplay, and people would be like, what? Okay, why don't you dress up?
It's definitely progressed in the last decades. I think people are playing a lot of video games and going, do you know what, this tavern in Baldur's Gate seems like a laugh, I wish I could actually go there and hang out and go on a quest, and that's very much what we want to facilitate, that kind of like proper old school like quest LARP, where people can go, I want to go to the Adventurers Guild and pick up a contract to do something cool with a group of my mates who aren't necessarily on the same nation, and off you go kind of thing.
Yeah. So people do magic, right? You said ritual magic. They can do. There's
battle magic as well, cantrips and rites.
Yeah, you can do swords and all that. There's no classes though, right? There's no, like, you don't pick a class, you just pick abilities, right?
Yeah, there's no class. We've got archetypes for all the nations that are just the common tropes of what a warrior or a, I don't know, bard might look like in that nation. Some of them are sort of what you'd expect. There are some absolute gems in there that have absolutely thrilled me when I've been reading them. My favorite one is one of the Avaro archetypes, which is the gourmand, which is I mean, I've been watching a lot of Delicious in Dungeon in the last few months, and so like it's like we get to there's a whole archetype for people who go out and find reagents and like, you know, things to put in potions, but because our potion system is consumables rather than just strictly potions, you could literally make a soup and it has the quality of, you know, the potion that you could make, you know, like regardless of what the vehicle is, it's still having the same properties. So, you know, you could play a sort of senshi kind of character who is like, you know, making incredible food if you're a foodie person who wants to do that.
Discovered a new recipe.
I will join the Adventurers Guild to find the best recipe for bread that exists in the world.
I love that though. I love that.
I guess thinking about things in those kind of terms where, like, I guess my eyes have been open to what kind of interesting characters people might want to play within a fantasy world that aren't just the kind of classic D&D, but using that classic D&D as a kind of launching board has been really cool.
Right. I'm conscious of the time, Kate, because I don't want I don't want to too greedy with your time. We've gone over the time we said to you, so I don't want to be too greedy with your time. Is there anything else you want to plug, mention about Menhirs before we go? Mention about EYELarp or
Character Wizard for Menhirs Fate characters is going to be up in the next week. So that's going to be really fun to play around with. And yeah, tickets are available at the moment for the first 4 events. So yeah, really excited to see hopefully a whole load of people on the field there experiencing some of the wacky stuff that I'm currently editing.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Menhirs. We'll put all the information for Menhirs, Feast Your Eyes, EYELarp, all the relevant links and everything we've talked about.
Well, the very long list of things that Kitty does. It's going to go down the
bottom. all the projects you can find in the show notes and in the video description. This has been great, Kitty. Thanks for coming on. I knew we'd have like a million things to talk about.
I'm a yapper.
No, it's been great. Right. Also, well, we'll say goodbye to the podcast, everyone, shall we? Right. See you later, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much for stopping by. If you enjoyed this episode, tell us about it in the comments. Give us a like, follow, share, give us the stars on audio platform. Go check out the Patreon. I've put all the links down in the description and the show notes for EYELarp, Feast Your Eyes, and Menhirs Fate if you're interested in any of those. Go check them out, go give them a follow, go support our friends creating these games so we can continue having fun and bringing these stories to you. Until the next time though, we love you very much and stay safe.